Hargraves took his departure without another word. He also left the house the same day, moving, as Mrs. Vardeman explained at the supper table, nearer the vicinity of the downtown theater, where A Magnolia Flower was booked for a week's run. Critical was the situation with Major Talbot and Miss Lydia. There was no one in Washington to whom the Major's scruples allowed him to apply for a loan. Miss Lydia wrote a letter to Uncle Ralph, but it was doubtful whether that relative's constricted affairs would permit him to furnish help. The Major was forced to make an apologetic address to Mrs. Vardeman regarding the delayed payment for board, referring to delinquent rentals and delayed remittances in a rather confused strain. Deliverance came from an entirely unexpected source. Late one afternoon the door-maid came up and announced an old colored man who wanted to see Major Talbot. The Major asked that he be sent up to his study. Soon an old darky appeared in the doorway, with his hat in hand, bowing and scraping with one clumsy foot. He was quite decently dressed in a baggy suit of black. His big, coarse shoes shone with a metallic luster suggestive of stove polish. His bushy wool was gray, almost white. After middle life, it is difficult to estimate the age of a Negro. This one might have seen as many years as had Major Talbot. "I be bound you don't know me, Mars Pendleton," were his first words. The Major rose and came forward at the old, familiar style of address. It was one of the old plantation darkies without a doubt, but they had been widely scattered, and he could not recall the voice or face. "I don't believe I do," he said kindly, "unless you will assist my memory." "Don't you remember Cindy's Mose, Mars Pendleton, what migrated immediately after the war?" "Wait a moment," said the Major, rubbing his forehead with the tips of his fingers. He loved to recall everything connected with those beloved days. "Cindy's Mose," he reflected. "You worked among the horses, breaking the colts. Yes, I remember now. After the surrender, you took the name of, don't prompt me, Mitchell, and went to the West, to Nebraska." "Yes, sir, yes, sir." The old man's face stretched with a delighted grin. "That's him. That's it. Nebraska. That's me, Mose Mitchell. Old Uncle Mose Mitchell, they calls me now. Oh, Mars, your pa give me a paw of them mule colts when I left for to start me going with. You 'member them colts, Mars Pendleton?" "I don't seem to recall the colts," said the Major. "You know, I was married the first year of the war and living in the old Follinsby place. But sit down, Uncle Mose. I'm glad to see you. I hope you have prospered." Uncle Mose took a chair and laid his hat carefully on the floor beside it. "Yes, sir. Of late I done mighty famous. When I first got to Nebraska, dey folks come all round me to see dem mule colts. Dey ain't seen no mules like dem in Nebraska. I sold them mules for $300. Yes, sir, 300. Then I opened up a blacksmith shop, sir, and made some money and bought some land. Me and my old woman done raised up 7 children, and all doing well except 2 of 'em what died. 4 year ago, a railroad come along and started a town slam against my land, and, sir, Mars Pendleton, Uncle Mose am worth $11,000 in money, property, and land." "I'm glad to hear it," said the Major heartily. "Glad to hear it." "And that little baby of yourn, Mars Pendleton, one what you name Miss Liddy, I'll be bound that little tad done growed up till nobody wouldn't know her." The Major stepped to the door and called, "Liddy, dear, will you come?" Miss Lydia, looking quite grown up and a little worried, came in from her room. "Dar now, what I tell you, I know dat baby done be plumb growed up. You don't 'member Uncle Mose, child?" "This is Aunt Cindy's Mose, Lydia," explained the Major. "He left Sunnymead for the West when you were 2 years old." "Well," said Miss Lydia, "I can hardly be expected to remember you, Uncle Mose, at that age, and, as you say, I'm plumb growed up and was a blessed long time ago. But I'm glad to see you, even if I can't remember you." And she was, and so was the Major. Something alive and tangible had come to link them with the happy past. The three sat and talked over the olden times, the Major and Uncle Mose correcting or prompting each other as they reviewed the plantation scenes and days. The Major inquired what the old man was doing so far from his home. "Uncle Mose am a delegate," he explained, "to the Grand Baptist Convention in dis city. I never preached none, but being a residing elder in the church and able for to pay my own expenses, they sent me along." "And how did you know we were here in Washington?" inquired Miss Lydia. "Dey's a colored man works in the hotel where I stops, what comes from Mobile. He told me he seen Mars Pendleton comin' outen dish here house one mornin'. What I come for," continued Uncle Mose, reaching into his pocket, "besides the sight of home folks, was to pay Mars Pendleton what I owes him. Yes, sir, $300. He handed the Major a roll of bills. "When I left, old Mars said, 'Take them mule coats, Moles, and if it be so you gets able, pay for 'em.' Yes, sir, dem was his words. De war had done left old Mars po' hisself. Old Mars being long ago dead, the debt descends to Mars Pendleton, $300. Uncle Mose is plenty able to pay now. When dat railroad buy my land, I laid off to pay for dem mules. Count the money, Mars Pendleton. Dat's what I sold dem mules for. Yes, sir." Tears were in Major Talbot's eyes. He took Uncle Mose's hand and laid his other upon his shoulder. "Dear, faithful old servitor," he said in an unsteady voice, "I don't mind saying to you that Mars Pendleton spent his last dollar in the world a week ago. We will accept this money, Uncle Mose, since, in a way, it is a sort of payment, as well as a token of the loyalty and devotion of the old regime. Lydia, my dear, take the money. You are better fitted than I to manage its expenditure." "Take it, honey," said Uncle Mose. "Hit belongs to you. Hit's Talbot money." After Uncle Mose had gone, Miss Lydia had a good cry, for joy, and the Major turned his face to a corner and smoked his clay pipe volcanically. The succeeding days saw the Talbots restored to peace and ease. Miss Lydia's face lost its worried look. The Major appeared in a new frock coat, in which he looked like a wax figure personifying the memory of his golden age. Another publisher who read the manuscript of the Anecdotes and Reminiscences thought that, with a little retouching and toning down of the highlights, he could make a really bright and saleable volume of it. Altogether the situation was comfortable, and not without the touch of hope that is often sweeter than arrived blessings. One day, about a week after their piece of good luck, a maid brought a letter for Miss Lydia to her room. The postmark showed that it was from New York. Not knowing anyone there, Miss Lydia, in a mild flutter of wonder, sat down by her table and opened the letter with her scissors. This is what she read: "Dear Miss Talbot, I thought you might be glad to learn of my good fortune. I have received and accepted an offer of $200 per week by a New York stock company to play Colonel Calhoun in A Magnolia Flower. There is something else I wanted you to know. I guess you'd better not tell Major Talbot. I was anxious to make him some amends for the great help he was to me in studying the part, and for the bad humor he was in about it. He refused to let me, so I did it anyhow. I could easily spare the $300. Sincerely yours, H. Hopkins Hargraves. P.S. How did I play Uncle Mose?" Major Talbot, passing through the hall, saw Miss Lydia's door open and stopped. "Any mail for us this morning, Lydia dear?" he asked. Miss Lydia slid the letter beneath a fold of her dress. "The Mobile Chronicle came," she said promptly. "It's on the table in your study." End of The Duplicity of Hargraves.